Pete Hegseth was, of course, confirmed as the Secretary of Defense late last week, and it took Republican Vice President J.D. Vance to come in and break the tie because 3 Republicans did defect, and Mitch McConnell, believe it or not, was one of them. But after this, barely scraping by the skin of your teeth type thing for Hegseth to get confirmed, officials at the Trump White House realized that Hegseth is probably not going to be the most difficult person to get into the White House. Oh, he was difficult, don't get me wrong. He shouldn't have gotten the position. It's horrifying that he did, but we still got Gabbard coming up. And the White House is, of course, most concerned about her. Democratic and Republican senators are most concerned about her. We also have Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose hearings are set to begin this week. We have Kash Patel as the FBI director. In other words, there are somehow, some way, people even worse than Hegseth still in the pipeline. So, the White House has engaged in a pressure campaign to remind Republicans in the Senate that if you do not fall in line, if you do not vote to confirm all of these weirdos and wackos, you're going to pay the price. Here is what an official said to NBC News from the White House. It's pass-fail. You either support everyone or you don't. The Senate needs to advise and consent, not advise and adjust. Now, before I keep reading here, let me ask this unnamed White House official a quick question here. What do you think advise means? Advise and consent. So like we have to give you our advice and then immediately consent with whatever you go with anyway? No, see, the advise part does allow for adjustments, right? And it's their job to determine whether or not these people are qualified. It is not their job to bow down to Donald Trump and kiss his behind. But you seem to think it is, and the White House seems to think it is, and unfortunately, far too many people in the Senate seem to think that that is their jobs. But anyway, the White House official continued, and here comes the threat. There is a very well-funded consortium of outside groups and political actors that are sophisticated, smart, and tough. We've already seen that they've provided air support and narrative support to some nominees. They'll still be very well funded when the nominations are over, and they'll exact consequences, I'm sure, to those who do not support the president's nominees and get them to the finish line. So there's the threat, right? Like, hey, if you don't fall in line, if you don't do every single thing that we need you to do, we're not going to do anything. But I got to tell you, man, it'd be a damn shame if all these well-funded organizations out there that have basically financed your campaigns for decades, be a real shame if they just, stopped giving you money. I mean, this is like a mafia level threat, right? Like, hey, nice business you got here. Be a damn shame if somebody came in and broke all your windows, right? I mean, that's what we're dealing with, this mafia style tactic to get these Republicans to fall in line. And they will fall in line, but not necessarily due to the threat of primary challengers. Here's one thing that the Trump White House doesn't seem to understand, and Elon Musk has been making this threat already for months, like, hey, if you don't do everything we want you to do, we're going to fund a full-blown MAGA opponent for you in the next primary cycle. But here's the thing. There are plenty of areas in the country where a MAGA-style Republican is the preferred candidate over a centrist Republican. We've kind of gerrymandered ourselves. We have states that are basically filled with MAGA. That's what happens. But at the same time, there's lots of areas of the country, even more so, where a MAGA candidate has no chance at all. And let me give you a good example of that, like Bernie Sanders, right? Bernie Sanders, the most left person we have ever had. And he's great, and I love it, and I wish we had more of him. The problem is, Bernie Sanders can run the way he runs and have his views and, his very progressive style because that works where he is. You pluck Bernie Sanders out of Vermont and you stick him down here in Florida, and he's going to lose. You stick him in Alabama, they're going to run him out of the state. You stick him in California, where centrist Democrats are the preferred candidate. He's going to lose. You stick him in Washington or Oregon, maybe he's going to win. But the point is, different areas of the country prefer different types of candidates. So the threat of, this centrist Republican getting a MAGA challenger, it's not a threat at all. They don't care. They're like, oh no, what are you going to do? You're going to run an extreme crazy person in my swing state? Oh dear, how horrible for me. They don't care. But at the same time, they do kind of care. But they shouldn't. That's the point I'm trying to make. These threats are hollow, even if they're real. Like, they're still hollow because the consequence that they are threatening is unattainable. But it is what it is. I am still confident at this point, and so far I'm correct. I think all the nominees are getting through. Gabbard may be the only exception, but honestly, I don't even see that happening. Trump will get all of his picks. All of these horrible, weird, creepy, crazy, god-awful human beings will be serving in the Trump administration. There will not be a strong enough cohesion of Republicans voting against them. And hell, in the case of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is still on the fence about whether or not to support him. I mean, Whitehouse and Kennedy go way, way back. They have been friends for a long time. When Kennedy was on the radio show that I was producing, Sheldon Whitehouse was like our go-to because they were buddies. Like, if I was ever short for a guest that week, I'd be like, screw it, I'm going to email Whitehouse. He'd be like, oh, hell yeah, I'll do it with Bobby. And they're friends. And it's going to be hard for Sheldon Whitehouse to vote against him. So Kennedy's in. Kash Patel, you're going to have probably the same group of Republicans vote against him. May come down to J.D. Vance swooping in and saving the nomination. But it'll happen. The only X factor I do think is Gabbard. Not sure how that one's going to play out. But aside from her, and probably even including her, all these horrible people are going to get confirmed, but it's not going to be because of these threats from the White House. Did you know that you might be missing out on wonderful content from me? I mean, you're here already because clearly you like what you see. So if you're not already, please do subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like the video, share them with your friends and family, but also follow me across the rest of the social media world. And it's not that hard to do. Whether it's X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, on every one of those platforms, you can find me at the username @FarronBalanced. Simple enough, right? So get on it. And if you don't feel like going to each one of those outlets individually, lucky for you, we have links in the description of this video to take you right to my pages across all of social media. So don't miss a minute. And while you're at it, make sure you're also subscribed to the Ring of Fire YouTube channel, which I have been hosting for many, many years now. We've got more than 1 million subscribers over there, and there is fresh content over there every single day of the week. So again, if you're not subscribed, subscribe to this channel. And while you're at it, go subscribe to Ring of Fire at youtube.com/The Ring of Fire and @FarronBalanced across every social media platform that, of course, is not considered just a far-right hellscape. Well, maybe Twitter is, but that's a story for a different day.